what's up you guys, my name is Cybersnowolf, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So in the last episode, we did a showcase on The Last Ronin from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book series. And for this episode, we are going back to the MCU and doing a showcase on Moon Knight. This has actually been one of the projects that I've been working on for quite a while, but stuff had to push it back a bit, which I'll explain further on into the video. But everything is now here all together, and finally I can get around to doing this showcase. Okay, so for our figures, we have Moon Knight himself, as well as Mr. Knight. If you're curious of, why we don't have, Scarlet Scarab, Khonshu, or Jake Lockley, those characters, I honestly wasn't feeling quite the motivation to do them yet, but if they make a comeback, in the next season, which they probably will, I will get around to doing those. Plus, with Jake Lockley, I really want to see what his interpretation on Khonshu's armor will look like, since Steven and Mark's are very different from each other. I really want to see what Jake's looks like. So, if we get an idea of what it looks like, I'll definitely get around to doing a figure on him. In the meantime, though, I'm super excited to do these guys. Again, this has been a showcase that I've worked on for quite a while, but certain stuff had to come up, that I had to push it back for quite a bit. But now that it's all taken care of, we can finally get around to doing this. So, as you guys know the drill, we're going to take these minifigures one at a time, do review them, explain the process, why with this route, and then go from there. So without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get this showcase on the road. So to start us off, we have Mark Spector, the Moon Knight himself. Now this figure definitely required a lot more detailing compared to the other one, and little explanation as to why. As you can see, the whole kit that I use here is based off of Nate's minifigs, and I actually managed to get this before he had to do his long-time hiatus, and the kit itself is really, really impressive. He did an amazing job of getting, all these detailings of, the wrappings around Moon Knight, because when you look at him in the show, he's very much on, a mummy type, especially around the torso and the arms, a lot of wrapping. So when doing this, if we're doing this, sculpting, it would take a hell of a long time to try and get all the detailing in, but he managed to do an amazing job of capturing that likeness into figure format. The base body that I use is a UV printed Moon Knight figure that unfortunately I'm not able to remove. A lot of the detailing, a lot of the armor pieces to get a better look at the figure itself. But it is impressive, how this was printed. You can see the printing goes all the way on the insides of the torso and goes around. His little weapon here was a piece from one of Micro-Me or Taminio's Moon Knight minifigures, which he did an amazing job at that. The hood itself is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool design. You can see it's sort of similar to Lego official kind of hood piece, but a custom made and made also on its own. I could also kind of see this as sort of being used as a Raven, even from Teen Titans. Remove the mask and the moon, and you could really get a solid Raven minifigure through that. And either way, it's still pretty cool. It was kind of a pain to paint this up, though. Though I think that was one of the biggest problems that I had to go with this. Is that I don't understand how it works, but white paint on minifigures is always been a problem. It's been a problem for some reason, and especially with something like this, that I wanted to make sure that all the detailing was captured on as best as possible. So I first did a base paint on gray all the way around on all the pieces of the figure, and then I went back and carefully added in white with a push pin around the face, the shoulders, the gauntlets, and on the chest. You can kind of see that it sort of blends in a little bit more with the torso and the waist piece. It kind of smudges up together, but I still try to make sure that there was enough detailing to really show in the wrappings. You can also see on the torso there's the crescent moon, and these gold bits represent the pieces of armor on Moon Knight's overall design, which still add up to the character. I think it's still really, really cool. With further on with the hood, you can kind of see the moon engraved into it. And with the paint job over here, you can actually see the strips of paint that I had to put on with this. I think I put on 2 or 3 layers, and I actually kind of like it because it really adds more onto it. It really makes it look almost the wrappings are sort of blending in together around the hood, because that is kind of what Moon Knight's whole design is that it's all wrapped up together. And I believe, yes, okay. So for a long time I couldn't remove the hood, but now I can. So underneath the head, you could see it is a UV printed printed Moon Knight head, and I was gonna leave it like that, but at the time when I put the head, it was one of those scenarios. I put the hood on the head, and it got stuck to it. And only recently was I able to remove it and actually add on the repaints, because by then at that point the paint had blended in too much with it that was just like, it still looks it looks sloppy, so might as well just blend it up as best I can. And while we're at it, we can see if we can remove this, and this is just as like a classic minifigure K piece that probably will never be made again by official Lego. But on the back, you can see that the detailing does continue on with the pieces wrapping around with the figure, which still looks really, really cool. Very cool. And I'd say this was a pretty solid figure. Again, this wasn't it wasn't like super easy to do, as even though the sculpting had already basically been done thanks to Nate's Minifigs like whole armor kit thing. The biggest problem that I came with this was doing the paint, especially with white paint. It might be a case that if the paint is older, it's harder to work with, or if it's just something in general. I don't know why, but for some reason, white paint has always been a problem with Lego, with like Lego products. I'm not sure why. But regardless on like the paint obstacle, it still came out really, really cool, and it's probably one of my favorite like Marvel figures that I've customized, as well as Moon Knight in general. That show is probably my favorite on the MCU thus far. And last up, of course, we have Mr. Knight Steven Grant. And this figure is probably the main reason why I had to push back the Moon Knight showcase for quite a long time, because we have two obstacles. One, the headpiece. This headpiece, I had managed to get this from, I think it was like a canceled order on Nate's Minifig store that I managed to get in just in time. But it was during his period where he had to push some stuff back and had to delay some shipments. So I've been waiting for this thing for, I think, close to 5 months. And also around that time, when I was looking for a base template to make Mr. Knight off of, there was a shortage on like knockoff Mr. Knight minifigures. Like I tried to go on eBay, I tried to go on Etsy. With one order on Etsy, I had struggled with. I thought I had purchased just a Mr. Knight minifigure. I specifically remembered I did, but instead I was shipped a Moon Knight minifigure. And the further on I looked into it, the more I realized, oh no, this figure's on shortage. So I had to jump around for a while to find it, and only when I did like one of my trips to Comic-Con did I find a Mr. Knight figure. It was one of the last ones, and I immediately grabbed it because it was just like, okay, it's right here. I need to use it. So those were two factors that came in, and finally, recently, this hood piece finally came in. And I got to work on just giving it a quick paint job in white, and then putting it onto the figure, and now completed, it looks really awesome. So it was worth the wait in the end, despite the long delay. So anywho, with the overall printing on the figure itself, of course, it's a knockoff base. Knockoff minifigures, they're not official Lego, but they still pose off with like some cool detailing, and they're also very good for like base templates, I find, for customized minifigures. In fact, I think a majority of my Marvel figures are based off of knockoffs, but they're still pretty cool. I do like the detailing that they added into it with the suits. You can see like the wrinkles on the pants, and there's some on the arms. You look closer at like the lapels on the jacket, the vest, and the tie. You could see like the mummified wrappings, which I didn't know that was actually a thing until looking back at the show that I realized, oh, that's so cool. So a nice little added detailing onto that. And on the back, there's not really a lot going on. Like on the back torso, of course, like more detailing. Nothing on the sides of the legs, which is fine, honestly. And in my opinion, it would have been fine if these legs were just blank. But I do like the extra detailing of adding in these wrinkles, and you can see a little bit on the bottom with the shoes. Removing the head itself, we can actually see the headpiece underneath that. I just kept it as it was because it was still pretty cool. Cool. I do like the eyes. The eyes look pretty nice, and the detailing on the crescent moon. There's a moon and the wrinkles. It's overall really, really cool, but definitely I find when adding on depending on this mask piece. This piece, it makes it look even cooler and cooler. And he's got like some white batons. Batons that at first I thought about doing some detailing, but previous experiences in the past on trying to detail these rods while the minifigure is holding them has proven to be an unsuccessful result. So I decided to just skip past it and just focus on the overall other detailing to it. But aside from that, overall, it's still really, really awesome, and I still like it. And there we go. That is going to do it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, even though the showcase did have to be pushed back for a bit, it was still fun that I still glad that I got the opportunity to do this, and this was still really, really cool. Very cool. And again, with why I didn't do like Khonshu, not Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, and the other characters, I want to wait for a bit to see like what season 2 of Moon Knight will bring in. And I really hope we get to see Jake having his own variation of the moon on Khonshu's armor. I think it will look really, really cool. Really cool. But and overall, either way, I'm still really glad that I got to finish this. And next episode won't be as long because I finally wrapped up a couple of other stuff with one solo minifigure, and I finally got to finish Blue Team from Halo. So they'll finally be able to record on that showcase. Anyways, and once again with God of War Ragnarok, I am still scheduled for that showcase. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I have completed Kratos and Atreus. They are fully done and ready for the showcase. Okay, I've started on base bodies for Thor and Tyr. I'm not gonna fully dive into them until we get a better look at the game. And like once the game comes out and we get more video, more like references for Thor, Tyr, Freya, Brock, Sindri, Durlin, Angrboda, and maybe Odin. It will really depend on what they look like. But once we get an overall idea on what the characters will look like, I'll get back to that showcase and finally complete it. Either way, I'm super excited to show it to you guys. But overall, that is going to be it for this episode. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys next time in the next episode. Bye-bye!